people love to talk about it still, and you know, walking around Founders Park now, I run into a bunch of fans who I remember talking to or signing stuff for, after the games, and it's cool seeing people like that because they always bring it up, and it makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I did something for the program that people will remember, and I think that's something to smile about and look back on and be proud of.
What's it like to be a Gamecock baseball hero, one known as much as anything for beating the Clemson Tigers? On this week's edition of Gamecock Talk, we sat down with Andrew Eyster, who came to South Carolina thinking he'd be here for 1 year on his way to pro baseball and ended up making a 4-year commitment to this Carolina program. He gets into the many, many details of being a Gamecock baseball player and what it means to him now as he builds a career in Columbia. For folks that don't know, you're still in the community. You kind of adopted Columbia, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's came in from North Central Florida, knowing nothing about the program, university, the town, the community, and spent 4 years here and learned to love it. People have brought me in, treated me great, and so I decided to stay.
As you said, 4 years, but yet it's a unique 4 years because I think if you tell people I played college baseball for 4 years, they're going to think of a typical came here as a true freshman, did your 4 years and out. But you didn't do that. You started off at Santa Fe College, which is a JUCO down in Gainesville. You did 1 year there is all, right?
Yep, 1 year at Santa Fe.
And so you thought you were coming here for 3, or maybe, no, you thought you were coming here for 2, I'm assuming, because in the world of college baseball players, that I have to imagine that's how everyone has to approach things is, when am I first eligible to start playing professional baseball? Is that how you viewed it at the time?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I committed the summer before my sophomore year, came on a visit, decided this is where I want to be and where I wanted to be for 2 years, and that was definitely the plan coming in. And first year. Had a pretty good second half and came into feeling good for my junior year. And then, however many games it was, 20 games in, COVID happened and we were told to go home. And at that point, just kind of waited things out to see what would happen. And as draft time came around, I knew it was the best thing for me to come back for 1 more year. And then that ended up being 1 more year. So, what the plan was for it to be only 2 years, ended up being 4, but definitely would not have it any other way.
Yeah. That COVID year was strange on so many levels for everybody, but certainly for college athletes. Baseball was unique. Spring sports, I guess you would say, you never really got going that much. Your season had started. You had played non-conference. I think SEC play was supposed to be starting within a day or two of when they initially told us all to kind of stand down. I remember how strange it was. It was almost as if you can't go anywhere. Leave your radio equipment at the stadium. I think our radio gear sat in the press box that whole spring, and no one could go there. How did you guys manage as a team? What do you remember about that time?
Yeah, well, I remember our last game was a Tuesday against Citadel, here at Founders, and at that point we had heard stuff in the news about COVID, and we weren't sure exactly what was gonna happen. We weren't really prepared for much, and then it seemed, in a matter of a couple days, the season was done. It started. I think that weekend we were scheduled to play Georgia, scheduled to go to Athens and play Georgia, and I believe that Wednesday was when we were told that weekend was canceled, that weekend was postponed. And so from then we were like, okay, what's going to happen here? It started to feel a little more real. And then I think the very next day is when the NCAA came out and said that there won't be a season. So, I mean, it happened super fast, I think in a matter of 2, maybe 3 days. But when we found out, we were actually, I think at that point school had been postponed or canceled. I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Maybe
But
on spring break then, actually.
you're right. I think we were actually, because we were all at the retreat, hanging by the pool, playing some volleyball, and we were just having a good time, enjoying our spring break, enjoying our day off, and then we got told our season was canceled, and we had some fifth-year guys out there. We had Graham Lawson, Dallas Beaver, Bryant Bowen, those guys who, that was the day before was the last game they ended up ever playing. Well, Graham went to play some minor league ball, but it was emotional for some of those guys, and to know that we weren't going to play together the rest of that season was it was crazy for it to happen that fast.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to the subject of what a team life is like, because I see you guys enough to see how close teams get, and sometimes not close, but by and large, you're around each other so much of the day. That you build some pretty strong relationships that last. I'm sure you've got particular guys you were probably still closer with based on the friendships that you developed over time. But you still had that group that was kind of together to some degree, but I guess what you couldn't do was gather here at Founders Park. It was just kind of like we were all told, don't try and come back. Don't think you can avoid the rules. But when you think back about what baseball has done for you in terms of the relationships you built, what comes to mind as far as what that team atmosphere is like now that you are on to your next phase of life?
Yeah, I mean it's something that I miss, and even now working, it's something that we try to have at the office, and it feels good to be part of a team and to know there's people around you that have your back. But I definitely miss, sharing that locker room with 30-some other guys. That's something that I'll never get to have again, to get to experience again. But, it's something that I definitely did not take for granted. And it's something I wish I could, still be part of, especially the way these guys are playing right now.
You thought about a career path and what was next after baseball, and you started working with a local insurance company before your eligibility had expired. So you already had, to some degree, turned the page. How tough was it, though, to completely decide that I'm no longer pursuing baseball?
Yeah, it was, because for 20 years of my life, that's all that was the only plan I had for, for my life professionally and for a career was to go play baseball. And, even in college, that was still my plan. And, it wasn't until my senior year where I was like, okay, maybe I need to start, thinking of some other options. And then my fifth year, I was like, I knew it was time. I went into the last year knowing that this was going to be my last season playing. And that's something that I accepted. And people just, when it's your time, and I knew that it was my time. It was strange though, because you spend 20 years of your life preparing for one thing, and to have that, and to know that that's not going to happen, it was a weird feeling, a weird adjustment, and it definitely took a toll on me a little bit. But again, going into last year, I had made peace with that, and I'm happy where I am now. But it's definitely been strange. Especially for the first few months, not being on that field every day.
Yeah, I was going to say, you moved right in with a group, well-established company here in the Midlands, Gibson and Associates, and you've got the kind of the support system there of a lot of people, but in particular, one guy who knows exactly what you're going through, and that's Bo Mobley, who also came here from out of state to play baseball for South Carolina. And he kind of had his career taken away from him at an earlier age because of injuries. Is that what got you connected with that group? Kind of tell the story on how you ended up there to begin with and how it's evolved into a career for you.
Yeah, so I got to know Bo the summer going into my true senior year. And he's become him and his family become a big part of my life. But yeah, like you said, he played here back in 2000 with, to this date, probably one of the most successful South Carolina baseball teams that we've had. Not as far as playoff wise, but as regular season, just pure dominance.
Right.
losing less than 10 games in a regular season. But it's funny how we met. So I was moving out of my apartment into a new one going into my senior year, and because of COVID and stuff, we hadn't been allowed back here. So all my stuff just sat in the apartment while I was home, and I needed a trailer to use to get all my stuff out into the new one. And so I asked Coach Lake, who I'm also super close with, if he knew anyone with a trailer that I could use. And he's like, yeah, I know someone that lives right down the road from me. So I went up there, hung out with Coach Lake for a while, and then met Bo, let me use his trailer to move stuff in and out of my apartment, and got to see his place. He's got a bunch of land out there in Newberry County, and I'm big into the outdoors, hunting and fishing and stuff, and he had an awesome weight room with batting cage, and that was before we were even allowed in here. So. Right. So I was going up there. I was hitting, working out, fishing up there, and I kept going on off days, even when we were back allowed, to use our facilities. It was just a nice escape for me, and so I got to know them very well, and you got to learn more about the insurance business, the benefits business, and decided it was something that I wanted to pursue.
And you mentioned Coach Lake, Stuart Lake, who was on the staff here almost throughout your entire time as a Gamecock, and you think about those relationships. Columbia has been really connected as a university town for so long that you find those connections, whether it's with other former student athletes or just people who support athletics here and support the university. So from there, how did it transition into a job? Was it originally an internship through school, or what did that work?
Yeah, so it was. I needed an internship for my major, and I approached Bo and asked if I could do it with him, and he said of course. And so the fall of my 5th year, I went in a couple days a week to the office and interned. It was I got to learn the ropes somewhat. Learn the lingo, learn how they do business. Didn't get to do any active selling or anything that I'm doing right now, but it definitely helped prepare me for as soon as our season ended last year to jump right in and get going.
Let's talk a little bit about baseball now. Your true senior year, which was your 3rd year in the program, was South Carolina's last time 2 seasons ago. In the NCAA tournament. And that was a team that got off to a really hot start and then kind of had some ups and downs in conference play, as will happen to you in this league, and then found itself hosting a regional in spite of not being a #1 seed. What about that team stood out to you as far as, when you think about having an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament? I got to think that's what you came here to do. That had to play a part. Obviously, you're making decisions based on playing time, but was that something that entered your mind when you made your decision on where to pursue college baseball?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always wanted to play in the SEC. I always wanted to play in front of these big crowds and have a chance to go to Omaha. I grew up, watching the College World Series, and that's something I dreamed of doing. And to be able to have that kind of crowd here, especially when we were at 50% capacity the whole season.
Right.
That was incredible. It was an electric atmosphere, so much fun. That team, we had so much talent on that team, and I thought we definitely had the opportunity to make it further than we did, and that's always gonna sting a little bit, being knocked out, especially here at home during the regional. Because we all had that taste of Omaha, or we didn't have the taste, but we knew it wasn't that far away, and so to kind of lose that opportunity here at home, it sucked. But that was a team full of firepower, at the plate and on the mound, and that was a fun season. It didn't end like we wanted to, but that was a fun year.
And I always go back to also knowing what you knew about what could have been. How tough was it to have to know the next weekend when they were playing the Super Regional here between two teams that neither were, representative of this community or this university? Did you pay much attention? That was of course, Virginia against Dallas Baptist. Did you pay much attention, or were you going out of your way to not pay attention?
No, I was paying attention. You know, at that point, I had pretty much moved out and gone home for the summer. But it was definitely a little bit of salt on the wound, playing in our home park, and us not being involved in that. But yeah, I paid attention, and obviously Virginia, you know, was super hot at that time, and it made it to Omaha, and they you know, they had a really good postseason, but it did hurt a little extra them playing that super regional here at Founders and us not being on the field.
All right, let's get to some good vibes now. You have one thing that will always be associated with your name, I think, for Gamecock baseball fans, and that is the big moments you had against Clemson in your career. It wasn't one year. You had the ability to leave your mark on that rivalry in multiple seasons. One year, I know you took home the Tom Price Award for the most valuable Gamecock in the 3-game series. I guess it was 2 years ago when you had your fingerprints on a couple of wins in that series. Any individual singular moment stand out more than others about your memories of playing the guys in orange?
You know, obviously the walk-offs was you know, the biggest moment of my career, probably my whole baseball career, but particularly here in South Carolina.
Because you had them back-to-back days, right?
Yeah, in Greenville and back here at home.
Yeah.
And you know, that was incredible. Obviously the atmosphere here and just the dog piles and you know, the feeling of winning the game in the last inning. You know, it was incredible. All that was incredible. But I definitely remember the first ever game we played my first year, my sophomore year, when we went to Clemson and played that first game at home there, and we were able to beat them. I think the score was like 5-4, 6-4, something like that. It was a close game. But getting the first taste of that rivalry, having the drunk guys in right field scream at me, and you know, it just getting a taste of honestly the hatred that exists between the two universities and communities, and everyone gets along, but just feeling that. And again, I grew up just south of Gainesville, and I grew up with the Florida and Florida State rivalry, and it's not the same.
Right.
You know, it's not the same. People take it much more personally here. People care more, and it means so much to people on both sides, and you know, I just remember getting a taste of that and feeling like, wow, like this is crazy. This is like nothing I've ever experienced. So that really stood out to me.
Did anyone try and prepare you for that, almost like make you understand what that rivalry was going to be like, you know, ahead of that first year? Is that something that is brought to your attention as an individual or as a team, either by existing players who know it, or maybe from here and get it, or by coaches? And then, you know, when it does happen, how different is it even than maybe how it's portrayed?
Yeah, it's always different. When it's your first time, it's going to be different than what you expect. You know, I remember hearing guys in the locker room talking about it and being, oh, I hate Clemson, and be like, yeah, I hate them too, I guess. Like, you know, and you don't really understand it until you're out there. And you see how passionate the fans are and how passionate the coaches and players who have been there before, and that's when it really kicks in, and you realize that people really, really care about this.
All right, to that point, as a hero in the Gamecock-Clemson rivalry, the phrase will always follow, well, he'll never have to pay for another meal in this town again. That's the old saying that always gets brought up in a rivalry situation like that. Did you have any personal experiences, especially since you had big games against them in multiple years, of being rewarded for the performance against Clemson? Anything that you knew directly happened because, hey, you guys beat Clemson, you were the hero, you walked them off, and this is what happens for you? And I'm not looking for any really juicy stories, but was there ever any real proof that, oh yeah, I guess that this did turn out pretty well for me?
I may or may not have had some drinks bought for me at one point or another, to say the least. But you know, it definitely people have talked about it still, and you know, walking around Founders Park now, I run into a bunch of fans who I remember talking to or signing stuff for, after the games, and it's cool seeing people like that because they always bring it up, and it makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I did something for the program that people will remember, and I think that's something to smile about and look back on and be proud of.
Absolutely, it is. All right, now the other side of that, you mentioned getting heckled or given a hard time by fans out in right field.
Yep.
And their situation is pretty unique in right field. They've got the old bus that sits out there. If you're playing right field at Kingsmore as a Gamecock, I'm sure you probably hear it, feel it more than any other position on the field. That's just my guess. I don't know if that's accurate, but I've always thought that based on the way the place is laid out.
Yep.
Did you have any experiences, whether it was Clemson or anywhere else in the SEC for that matter, that stand out to you when you think about the combination of heckling or just interactions with fans when you're in the field?
Yeah, I mean, probably the coolest interactions I had were at Mississippi State, and it wasn't as much the heckling. It was those fans there are awesome, and I had a good weekend. That was my first year, my sophomore year. I had a good weekend, a good series that when we played them. It was the final series of the year, and I think they kind of respected that because it wasn't anything mean or anything try to get under my skin. They were talking to me and they were giving me food during the games. I remember they threw me a piece of pork tenderloin, gave me some chicken wrapped in bacon, and I've told the story a few times. One guy tossed me a brownie. He tossed me a brownie in the middle of the game, and I ate it. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, should I have done that? It was fine though. It was fine, but that's a story I like to tell. But there was, I mean, we played in a few atmospheres that I wish the timing could have been different. We played Ole Miss. I guess that was 2 years ago, and it was their graduation weekend.
Yep, sure was.
So everyone was gone. There was, the right field was. They have a name for them in right field, don't they?
Yeah, I think you're right. But the Solo Cup,
Swayze Crazies, is that what they call them?
Something like that. Yeah.
And it wasn't near as full as it usually is. We played at LSU. They were having a down year. The weather was bad that weekend, and so it wasn't as packed in right field. But as far as just heckling goes, it probably was the worst in right field at Clemson.
Yeah. That Mississippi State series you mentioned, I will always remember that. Tommy and I talk about this on the air at times because the final game of that series was the final day of the regular season. We had lost the first two. That was a very good Mississippi State team.
Oh, yeah.
We had lost the first two, and some people thought, at that point you're just playing out the string. Your season is going to end the next day. You're not even going to make it to Hoover. And Brett Carey came out and just threw an amazing game, and you hit an early home run in that contest to set the tone and kind of get guys going, get some energy in that dugout, and then held on at the end. And I mean, we held on by the
skin of our teeth.
Yeah. But what I always tell people is that is a home run that you can say anything you want about because no one can prove otherwise. The power, because that was graduation day for high schools in the Starkville area, and they were all graduating next door at the Humphrey Coliseum, and there were a ton of people coming and going, and they had a transformer blow on campus. And if you remember, we played the first few innings of that game without any electricity.
I remember
it was a day game, so you didn't need lights. But that also meant there was no music, there was no PA, and there was no ability to run the video board or any cameras. And Tommy and I we were fortunate, we were on the air because we had a battery backup for our equipment. So we were broadcasting the game, but no one could see anything that was going on if you weren't at the stadium. And you hit a bomb to left. At that point, they may have been in year 2 of the new dude, the renovated stadium. And their fans all told us that was the furthest they'd seen a ball hit at that point in time at that stadium. And we always joke that, well, we'll never be able to prove otherwise.
Exactly.
Because there's no video
There's no
proof.
evidence.
There's no evidence of that. But, is that, I don't know if you ever think in terms of the best you ever hit a ball, the furthest you ever hit a ball. TrackMan data kind of came in midway through your career, it seems like in my mind.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas in your mind what felt like the furthest you've ever hit a ball? Was it there? Was it somewhere else? What do you remember?
It probably was either that home run or honestly it might have been my first home run ever here. We were playing Utah Valley State.
Okay.
It was my first home run I hit. I think it was our second series of the year, and I hit one where we had a pretty nice tailwind going, but yeah, I hit it and it cleared just to the left of the batter's eye, and so those two were probably some of the most solid contact that I can remember. But I'd have to tell you probably one of those two.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and as it turned out, we won that game, and you all didn't go home.
No.
You went to Birmingham or to Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
And Tyson Lusk, I think, was still in charge of a travel at that point. He had to scramble and find you guys a hotel, and you ended up staying on the Alabama campus for a night before you went on into Hoover. And as they say, adding insult to injury was the fact that in winning that game and making the tournament, we knocked Alabama out of the tournament.
Yep.
So they come home to find the Gamecocks staying at their campus hotel for a day before we went to Hoover, and they didn't. That's crazy.
Yep.
Crazy baseball.
And Ryan Fisher and Gavin Pence, and I'm trying to think of his probably or Chipper or Gordon. They had to come all the way back here to grab our jerseys for the SEC tournament and go back to Hoover.
Yeah. Tommy and I had to do the same.
Yeah.
I remember that. Remember that well. So when you think about SEC competition, and you knew as you said, you wanted to play in the SEC, that meant you wanted to play the Gators. Mm-hmm. Did you grow up a Gator fan, being that close to Gainesville? I could see how that would be a pretty easy situation to fall into, not knowing what your family's history was with any particular school. Kind of tell us what that was like as far as who you were a fan of growing up, and then what it was like going back home to play in Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I hate to admit it now, but I did grow up a Gator fan, and it just because I lived 30, 40 minutes from Gainesville, and yeah, it was, and going back there was awesome for me, because at that point, there was no allegiance anymore to them. It was all being a Gamecock, and going back there was awesome. I didn't play very much that series, actually, my first year. I think I went 0 for 3 the first game, and then didn't get another at bat the rest of the weekend. But it was awesome. It was awesome going back there, and again playing against former teammates, high school teammates, guys I played with in travel ball, and guys who I became friends with, before that. And so that was pretty cool. And then getting to play them here, sweeping them, two seasons later, that was even better, because that was, just at that point I think they were playing pretty good ball too, and getting to sweep those guys, the team that you grew up rooting for, was pretty awesome. But there's no allegiance there anymore. They don't matter. So
I seem to recall you had a big home run in that series too. Right?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights of my Gamecock career as well. That was a fun one.
Was that the extra inning Friday night game?
Yeah, it was about 1 a.m, 14th inning.
Yeah, we had some rain on top of extra innings, as I recall.
Yeah, that was a long day, and after winning that game, it's hard not to get the momentum for the rest of the weekend. Right. So I mean, we won that game in extra innings, 14 innings. I think we won the next 2 games pretty handily.
Right. What's that feeling like when you hit a home run that matters that much? Walk off, or one that extends the game, gets it to extra innings, whatever the case might be. For all the fans out there who love the game but don't necessarily have anything in their history to compare that to, what is that like, and how much do you remember moments like that versus are they just blurs in a competitive moment that you don't really stop and hold on to thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like that blur until you touch home and get in the dugout. At that time, it happens. You swing, you see the ball go over, and you just run the bases. And I wish that I would have taken more time just to take the environment in, while that's going on. And that's something I never really did while I was playing. But I wish I would have. But it's kind of after the fact that you really take it in, and you know, realize what just happened. And you know, those big moments are super cool, and you know, those are definitely the moments that I remember most about my time.
Founders Park, which is right out here, we're looking out at right field as we speak. That was your home more or less most of your career, and I don't know that it probably gets as much appreciation outside of those who see it every day for how well you played that position. I'll try not to hurt your feelings here, but you're not the most athletic guy that we ever put in the outfield there.
No.
A little pigeon-toed, but strong arm, and you made that your home. And that's would you consider right field the toughest field to play here? And if so, kind of explain to people why it's unique.
Yeah, I mean, when the sun's out, yes. When the sun goes away, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that right field is the hardest position, because I think I'll be taken away from the catchers and the shortstops and the center fielders. But yeah, when that sun, you know, especially early in the year, that sun sets, you know, right behind the third base line. You know, it seems like right above their dugout, right above the trees, and you know, for those 4 o'clock games, towards the end of the game, it's really bad, and you know, the 6, 7 o'clock games, so the first few innings, it's really bad, and so you got to be on your toes out there, and you got to learn how to navigate that sun too, because you know, it's not going anywhere. That sun's gonna stay right there, and that ball's not moving in either, so you got to kind of move your body to adjust to that. But yeah, it's tough, but I absolutely loved playing out there and right, man, and you know, especially getting to interact with the fans who are on the other side of the fence. All the kids would always gather past the stands down the first base line in the berm. They'd always gather there because I was generous with giving away baseballs, and I don't know if you might ask Jamie now, and he might that might be something that he's got a little animosity towards me for, but I like to give the balls away, and that became part of, I feel like, my identity here was just playing right field and being out there, and that's something I miss is just interacting with people out there and you know, being the guy that people see out there every single day.
Yeah.
But the new guy who's out there isn't too bad either. So
Petrie, is that his name?
I think you heard of him?
Yeah, I believe so.
He's doing an all right job, I think. But yeah, so they got a new guy out there, and that's totally fine. I'm rooting for him. He's done a heck of a job so far.
I was going to get to him, but let's just dive into it now.
Yep.
What have you taken from watching him, knowing, you know, your freshman year, first year out of high school, you were playing at Santa Fe? What about his performance so far catches your eye more than, I mean, I know the numbers are what they are, they're crazy, but what as a ball player, what was the first time that you took note of him, and you know, what did you know about him, if anything, before the rest of us did?
Yeah, I mean, I just knew that he was a Florida boy down there in Land O'Lakes, but I mean, I think you could see it from, you know, when did he start playing? Was it the second weekend he really started playing?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean,
he sat out the first 2 games entirely.
Yeah, it was pretty evident right away. You don't see a freshman that looks that comfortable at the plate that early on. And again, I know it was non-conference to start, and sometimes you can fool people in non-conference play, but you know, it's gone right into the SEC play, and shoot, he might even be hitting better in SEC play than he has in non-conference. But just looking so comfortable at the plate, you know, he doesn't get fooled very often. Has good at bats. He'll take his walks and just does not miss the good pitches. And obviously crazy power. You know, he kind of reminds me of myself a little bit in right field, just kind of goofy and a little awkward out there. You know, just a big dude, moves around, kind of funny. And then I see him hit, I'm like, yeah, he's nothing like me. He's way better. But yeah, he's funny because he like you said about me, probably a little pigeon-toed and just kind of moves just a little awkwardly out there, and he's just a big kind of goofy kid, but can really hit the ball.
Yeah, and you pointed it out the way you described it. I think it's probably something players notice more than fans do, and that is how comfortable he looks.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you see that, I mean, that probably is a bit of a red flag because it's so unusual to see someone who just doesn't seem to be at all, and he's not fazed by any of it. And when he hit that home run against Skeens last Thursday, of all the things he's done, that one still is the one that really got my attention because of the circumstances. I mean, you're turning around 99 in an atmosphere like it was the first at bat you've seen this guy. I just got to think that really resonates with people who played the game at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to turn around 99 as a freshman and like with ease, I've told this to a few people so far, and I think it's funny. My first year, we played Georgia opening weekend. They came here, and they had Emerson Hancock at the time. And he was, flamethrower. He was 96 to 98, touching 99. And I remember my first at bat against him, I hit a ground ball to third on a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. And I felt really good about myself. And this kid turns around 99 for a bomb. And it's just, again, it's unheard of. You don't see that from freshmen. You don't see it from most college players. The guy hadn't given up a home run the whole year. But yeah, you don't see it very often what Ethan's doing, and it's I tip my cap to him because it's one of the more impressive things that I've ever seen out here.
Guys that you played with that have pursued and are pursuing pro ball, do you stay in touch with any of them? Is there in this era of social communication, people can kind of share things as a group, and then there's one-on-one conversations. There's guys that you maybe were roommates with, whatever the case may be. Anybody in particular that you still are more connected with than others, and that you keep up with as they pursue their dreams?
Yeah, there's a few of them. One of them I'd say is Seitler. Him and we got super close last year. We were roommates most of the time on the road, and he was here with me the whole time. He came in as a freshman. I came in here as a sophomore. We both did our 4 years, and he was the guy that I loved playing with because the ups and downs that he went through were pretty substantial. Coming in as a highly touted prospect, turned down some money to come here. Given the opening day job, and really struggled that year, and really struggled for a couple years to kind of find his role and find that swing that we knew he had. And then, even last year to struggle at the beginning and then really come out. What Seitler did the second half of the year is kind of what you're seeing Petrie do right now. It was just out of this world, just hitting the ball hard every at bat and just looking super comfortable up there.
And was really not healthy.
No, not at all.
He had so many different things going on.
Torn UCL, a half-broken ankle. I mean, just his groin, his hip. He'd hit a nuke and then barely, waddle his way across around the bases. And so He's one of my really good friends, one of my best friends, and so I definitely keep up with him. And
I know he's in the Pirate system, right? Where is he? Do you know where he is right now?
Yeah, he's down in Bradenton right now.
Bradenton.
He's still rehabbing, throwing and hitting, doing all. I talked to him the other day. I think I believe he said at the beginning or end of May they'll send him out somewhere. I think either to, I want to say, Greensboro? Is that one of their teams? Somewhere in North Carolina, or he's going to stay down and play for their Bradenton team, their single A team. So I'm not sure where we'll end up, but he'll end up one of those two places. So I keep up with him, and then Noah Campbell, he's one of my good buds too, and we played together for a couple years, played together in summer in the Cape, and I still keep up with him a lot.
Noah up to Double A yet? Or?
Yeah, he's in Biloxi.
Okay.
So yeah, him, TJ Shook, and Wes Clark are in Biloxi, I'm pretty sure, in Double A right now.
Sounds like a good place for you to make a road trip.
Exactly.
TJ Hopkins, you played with 1 year?
1 year.
1 year. TJ's in AAA now. He's knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of guys from this program that do that. Fans keep up with that, and I'm sure you do as well. Before we let you go, you played under Mark Kingston for 4 years. King talked the other day in this room at a press conference about how you evolve as a coach, and you maybe along that path you kind of, I don't know if soften is the right word, but you learn to relax a little more. And we were joking about, Roman Kimball doing his vlogs where he's got the video camera in the dugout and in the training room and everywhere, and asked Coach if he spends any time watching that on YouTube, and he chuckled about it. But can you see him right now maybe enjoying it a little more than he did when early on when you were here?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when you got a team that's playing like these guys are right now, it's hard not to just sit back and watch and enjoy. And that goes for everyone. That goes for the players, all the coaches, everyone involved, the fans. When you're out there struggling, like we did a lot of time when I played, it's hard to really enjoy it. You enjoy playing, you enjoy the game, you enjoy the atmosphere, but you always have that anxiety. You always have that pressure on you to perform. And these guys do it so effortlessly, it seems. I'm sure Kingston and all the guys, all the other coaches, all the players are just enjoying the ride right now. They're doing what they need to do, and I'm sure they're putting all their work in and doing all the stuff behind the scenes. But I think everyone in that dugout is just enjoying it right now.